I am the female lead in a sweet romance novel. We grew up together since childhood sweethearts with the crown prince. Several years after the sweet romance plot concluded, the neighboring emperor's iron cavalry trampled across our land, forcing him to surrender his most cherished possession in exchange for peace between our nations. Jingming trembled as he held me in his arms. Chuanhe, my most cherished possession is you. Would you bear humiliation and hardship for my sake? I didn't cry, but with resolute eyes, I walked step by step toward the emperor of the neighboring country. This time, I wasn't blind. At last, I saw clearly. On the day he welcomed me, his armored cavalry gleamed silver, his dark eyes sharp as blades, brimming with youthful audacity. In this lifetime, we can love each other properly now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. In my past life, I was blinded. Before Xieji's cavalry arrived, I was poisoned and blinded by the crown princess of Jingming. At that time, he was newly married, immersed in his blissful life, and had long forgotten our youthful affection. He said to me, "The crown princess has been spoiled since childhood, as the crown prince's concubine. You must not defy her in the future." Because of those words, that woman became ruthless and poisoned the tea, blinding me. This lifetime has always been like this. I sat on the bed, surrounded by a circle of kneeling imperial physicians in the dim light. Crown Prince Jingming, his face filled with rage, declared, "If you can't cure her, you'll all be buried with her." The entire room was stunned. Since the crown prince came of age, he had always been gentle as jade. Even when the emperor forced him to marry someone he didn't love, he had never been so violent. Jingming held my hand with heartache. "Chuanhe, don't cry anymore. I will personally seek justice for you." I reached up to touch my face, only to find it wet with tears. So I had been reborn, yet my tears weren't for my blinded eyes. Instead, I recalled the moment before my death in my previous life, when that man, riddled with bloody wounds, held me and whispered, "You've gotten your wish, he's come for you." In this life, darkness enveloped my vision. My eyes had gone blind once more. I replied gently, "Thank you for your highness's deep affection." Soon, the imperial guards uncovered that the one behind the poisoning was none other than the crown princess, Song Ruyu. Jingming was furious. "The crown princess is pure-hearted. I won't allow anyone to slander her." Everyone knew the crown prince had been married for only half a year. The crown princess was spoiled and willful. No one in the Eastern Palace dared to defy her. I, who grew up with the crown prince since childhood, am also the granddaughter of his late revered teacher, to the crown prince. "Both of us are deeply cherished, Your Highness," I said softly. "I haven't eaten for 2 days. The only thing I've had is the tea offered by the crown princess." These words seemed to strike Jingming's vital spot. Gritting his teeth, he had no choice but to let the imperial guards continue their account. Poisonous substances causing blindness were found in the crown princess's chamber, and her maids have already confessed it was she who poisoned Lady Su. In the dead silence, the crown prince closed his eyes heavily, his towering figure exuding an oppressive aura. Furious and humiliated, he snapped, "Silence! Bring that vile woman here. I will question her myself." Soon, Song Ruyu arrived. She glided in, her delicate pink silk dress swaying, as charming as a blossoming crabapple tree in spring, radiant and dazzling. Jingming was momentarily dazed, his tone softening considerably. "Was it you who poisoned Chuanhe?" Song Ruyu wept. "If your highness trusts her, what use is there in summoning me? I've always been straightforward. If that's the case, then it must have been me who poisoned and blinded her. She's lost her sight, so I can only repay her with my life." With these words, Song Ruyu burst into tears, lifted her skirt, and turned to dash into the heavy rain. Quickly disappearing from sight, the man who had been holding me stiffened all over. Even as he stayed by my side, his mind was clearly elsewhere. I lowered my eyes in silence, so his heart had already been biased from this early on. "But I don't care anymore." I said the same words as in my past life. "Your Highness, the crown princess is frail, and it's raining outside." Jingming looked worried and murmured, "Chuanhe, you're always so considerate. In such heavy rain, her frail health might make her ill. I'll be right back." He too rushed into the pouring rain. The crown prince has departed. He never returned from that journey. The entire palace fell into silence, with rain pattering on the blue tiles outside and a dim lamplight flickering indoors. While the muffled sobs of maidservants could be heard, "The position of crown princess was originally meant for you, my lady." The crown prince clearly has feelings for the young lady, yet the young lady neither competes nor strives, and thus finds herself at a disadvantage. Leaning against the window, I listened to the sound of rain outside. Once, I thought the autumn wind bleak and desolate, and my solitude bitter. Now, I only feel at ease and comfortable in body and mind. In my past life, I too had believed that it was because I wasn't skilled enough that I couldn't compete with Song Ryu. So following the old nanny's advice, when the imperial physicians brought medicine to treat my eye disease, I stubbornly refused to drink it. They said that if I went blind, Jingming would pity me, seek justice for me, and resent Song Ryu for the rest of his life. Later, I completely lost my sight. Song Ryu merely received a few days of house arrest as punishment, with even the assigned scripture copying done by the Crown Prince himself. Yet after I lost my sight, the Crown Prince deceived me, delivering me to the neighboring emperor's bed to become his pawn. He lied to me. Chuanhe, our kingdom's ruin and our family's destruction are all Xieji's doing. Will you go to the enemy state and cooperate with me from within? With tears in my eyes, I agreed. I became a spy. More than a decade passed, and Xieji was defeated through my collaboration with Jingming. Working from both inside and outside, born into nobility, he had never knelt before anyone. Yet before his death, he knelt before Jingming, kowtowing until his flesh was torn and bloody, pleading, "I beg you, spare my wife." Jingming laughed heartily. How ridiculous. The queen by your side was my spy all along. The man's eyes were lifeless as he gazed at me with a gentle smile, like a farewell. I've known from the very beginning. At that moment, I was already powerless to change anything. After his death, my emotions surged violently. By coincidence, my vision cleared just in time to see Jingming curse bastard under his breath before personally swinging his sword to slaughter both my children. He bent down and gently caressed my face, saying, "Chuanhe, you've suffered these years, with all the sins upon you. Spend the rest of your days with the dim lamp and ancient Buddha in the temple." At that time, he had numerous descendants, ruled over vast lands, and enjoyed the blessings of multiple wives. Only then did I realize I had been trapped in the youthful affection of bygone days, deceived into being a lifelong spy. Before my death, I remembered how the wind howled in my ears that year. As the enemy's war banners welcomed me into Xieji's embrace, with an air of pride, he declared, "I've heard you grew up with the Crown Prince, but I insist on showing the world who is better, him or me." How utterly unrestrained he was. Fortunately, in this lifetime, everything is still within reach. The rain has stopped. Every day I drink the Imperial Hospital's medicine, so bitter it chokes my chest. My maid urged me, "Miss, they say the Crown Princess and His Highness have reconciled. If you don't employ some stratagem of suffering, the Crown Prince will forget about the poisoning incident." I smiled faintly, no longer listening to her words, simply counting the days one by one. 2 more months until the autumn hunt. The nursemaid who raised me since childhood smiled warmly as she embroidered my wedding shoes. It was only a matter of time before our young lady married the Crown Prince. Why do you count the days like a child? Only then did I remember, in 2 months would be my wedding day with Crown Prince Jingming. Jingming and I once carried the beautiful expectations of our ancestors. 15 years ago, my grandfather carried me in swaddling clothes into the palace and knelt before the deathbed of the ailing former emperor. "Your Majesty, this is the posthumous daughter of your subject's daughter-in-law. Please bestow a name upon her." That day, the young Jingming stood by his grandfather's sickbed and, upon hearing my infant giggles from the swaddling clothes, suddenly stepped forward. "Grandfather, I want to hold her." The late emperor, eyes brimming with amusement, decreed the fate of my life with a single phrase. "My eldest grandson is named Jingming, so this girl shall be called Su Chuanhe. May they guard my vast empire together, deeply devoted as husband and wife, with descendants flourishing." But in the end, only Jingming possessed the world, enjoying wealth and honor. While I lost everything, on the day of our grand wedding in the previous life, Xieji has arrived. Jingming and I became star-crossed lovers. Yet now I find myself longing for that day. I took the wet nurse's hand and smiled gently. "Nanny, would you come away with me?" The wet nurse froze, then brought over a bowl of medicine. "This servant will naturally stay by your side, young miss. But first, please drink your medicine." In my past life, I shared a bed with Xieji for over 10 years. Yet I never once saw his face. In this lifetime, I cannot afford to be blind again. So no matter what prescription the imperial physician gave, I endured the bitter taste and torment to try it. I lifted the medicine bowl and drank it all in one gulp. The medicine didn't work. After going blind, I leaned on my maid step by step. The warm sunlight bathed me, yet my vision remained pitch black. My hopeful heart gradually sank. Perhaps I'd never see again in this lifetime. I didn't know where the maid was leading me. I heard the silver bell laughter of a young maiden approaching. Around the corner, Song Ryu came pulling a kite string, and as she passed me, she deliberately knocked me down with force. I stumbled and fell, the sharp stones cutting painfully into my palms. She laughed wildly, deliberately stepping on my hand and grinding her foot. Su Chuanhe, you're so useless, a lone orphan like you. Blind and without family standing even as the crown prince's concubine, you're just a block of wood for others to bully. She forbade her maids from helping me up, whispering cruel words that pierced my heart. And yet you grew up with the crown prince like childhood sweethearts. You don't even dare to cry. The radiant boldness he adores is nowhere to be found in you. The poison you've been given is my Song family's secret formula. How could it be easily undone? Yet you're the one who caused my quarrel with the crown prince. In my anger, I scattered all the antidote into the pond to feed the fish. The maidservant stood at a distance, only able to glimpse her charming face, bright with a clever smile, fearful of authority. No one dared to step forward. She didn't know, in my past life, I'd been blind for a lifetime, long since unshackled from relying on sight, gritting through the searing pain in my hand. I yanked out the sharp hairpin from my head and slashed it viciously across her face. I lifted my head and smiled. Song Ryu, then I'll ruin you too. With a swift motion of the hairpin, Song Ryu's scream pierced the air, sharp and ghostly, startling birds into flight. My face, you vile wretch, guards, beat this wretch to death. The Eastern Palace was in chaos. When the crown prince arrived in haste, all he saw was Song Ryu covering her face, marred by hideous scratches. And the weapon was none other than the hairpin in my hand. Furious, he raised his hand and slapped me. Su Chuanhe, have you lost your mind? I covered my face, the back of my hand stained with crushed blood. The flesh wound was severe. Jingming's gaze burned, sharp as ever, faintly guessing at a certain possibility. What happened to your hand? He asked. I remained silent, shaking my head, and with the maid's support, slowly walked away step by step. He shouted from behind, "Stop, I ask you." When he tried to catch up, a coquettish complaint halted his steps. Your Highness, my face hurts so much. Jingming pushed aside the bothersome Song Ryu and strode toward me. Just as he was about to grab my sleeve, Song Ryu's maid screamed, Your Highness, the crown princess has fainted. At that moment, Jingming turned back. He picked up the fallen Song Ryu and ran straight to the imperial hospital, never glancing back at me. After returning to my own courtyard, my wet nurse bandaged my nearly mangled fingers. The pain brought tears to my eyes. My wet nurse said, Endure it for now, young mistress. Once you become the crown prince's concubine, she won't dare act so arrogantly anymore. Suddenly I remembered in my past life, when I broke a porcelain cup in the Wei Kingdom's palace and cut my fingertip, it didn't hurt at all. Yet Xieji held me tenderly with pity, remorseful for a long time, saying, It's my fault. Knowing you couldn't see yet leaving things around to trip you. From then on, all utensils in the palace were replaced with gold and silver, and I never suffered another injury. My hand was bandaged properly. I won't be able to touch water for many days. The wet nurse gently held me in her arms. Don't be afraid, young miss. Look at Song Ryu's face, it's already disfigured. Surely her days of influence are over. For a woman, facial disfigurement is an exceptionally cruel fate in this world. But the wet nurse had worried too much. Song Ryu, the woman who seemed to have stolen my fortune, was living exceedingly well. A few days later, joyous news arrived from the crown prince's personal eunuch. Song Ryu was pregnant. After court each day, the crown prince stayed by her side without fail. When the news reached the palace, the emperor and empress were overjoyed. Bestowing countless rare treasures upon the unborn child, only I was placed under house arrest, forbidden to step beyond the courtyard gate, all because Song Ryu said she didn't want to see me, fearing it might startle the royal heir in her womb. Jingming even sent a eunuch to relay a message, as the crown prince. There are times when I have no choice. Chuanhe, you've always been virtuous and proper since childhood. The ceremony to appoint you as a concubine in a month will be kept simple. The wet nurse was so furious she stamped her feet and pounded her head. She felt indignant on my behalf. What does His Highness mean by this? The young lady was already alone and helpless, and now the wedding is being simplified. Who knows how many scornful looks she'll have to endure. Before my eyes, the light and shadows danced indistinctly. I had long stopped listening to what she was saying, aware only of a faint joy swelling in my heart. I looked up. Nanny. Those things don't matter anymore. My eyes seem to be able to see. I will never again fail to recognize the face of the person lying beside me in this lifetime. I drank my medicine without complaint, counting the days until the wedding, wishing for that day to come sooner. 7 days before the wedding, Song Ruyu used the child in her womb to pressure the crown prince, forcing him not to marry me, first with tears, then with tantrums, and finally with threats of suicide. Jingming, troubled in heart, paced into my courtyard, where I sat at a small table munching on crisp cakes. He arrived, and I pretended not to notice, just as I had countless times in my younger days when I was angry with him. Perhaps it stirred old memories, for Jingming said wistfully, "Last night I dreamed of the Grand Tutor. With one hand he taught me the ways of kingship, while with the other he cradled you at 2 years old, brushing the crumbs from your lips, hearing of my grandfather's past." I rarely curved my lips into a smile, until the man tenderly held my hand and gently pulled me into his embrace, murmuring, "I always feel that if I don't marry you soon, it's as if I'll never have the chance in this lifetime." At his touch, my stomach churned faintly, and I pushed him away abruptly. Jing Ming staggered from the push, his movements stiffening slightly as his eyes flickered with emotion. "Chun-He, do you still resent me?" I remained silent and still, giving no reaction whatsoever. Thinking I was sulking, Jing Ming coaxed, "From now on, we'll be husband and wife. You is just a bit willful. What exactly are you angry about?" "Angry about what? Between us lies the enmity and grudges from our past life. Even the affection of those childhood years as playmates cannot bridge this chasm." "Your Highness, do you remember my grandfather's dying wish?" I suddenly kneel before him. "I beg you, annul our betrothal." The betrothal was annulled, now in this lifetime. I can meet that person with a clean slate. Perhaps he never considered I might not want to marry. The air was thick with silence, and Jingming's towering figure felt overwhelmingly oppressive. He stepped closer to me, sneering, "What's the act? You just want me to drive Ruyu away so you can become the crown princess yourself." On my knees, I retreated step by step, an inexplicable stubbornness rising within me, my eyes burning with sincerity. What does the crown princess matter to me? I no longer wish to marry. To my surprise, Jingming's face abruptly darkened as he gripped my throat. "Su Chuanhe," he hissed, "who else could you possibly marry besides me? Do not provoke me. I have reached the limit of my patience. I will not coax you over and over again. Guards, lock her up." He turned and left with a flick of his sleeve. I was thrown down hard, pain surging through me as endless hatred churned in my eyes. The wet nurse, terrified, held me tightly with heartache and said, "Why provoke His Highness? He's the future crown prince, with 3 palaces and 6 courtyards awaiting him. You'll have to accept this sooner or later." "Miss," I lowered my head slightly, 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, why didn't Xieji have them? So in my past life, I had never truly seen through this childhood sweetheart of mine. In the end, I had entrusted myself to the wrong man. I was imprisoned for 7 days. On the day of the grand wedding, I sat before my wet nurse as she combed my hair, smiling and saying, "Miss, the Eastern Palace is bustling with excitement today, adorned with red silk everywhere, so festive." She didn't know that I had long regained my sight. Just like in my past life, she deceived me. Today, just a few red lanterns were hung to mark the celebration. Yet they managed to deceive me into feeling utterly delighted. In this lifetime, I was led to the wedding ceremony, which was extremely simple, so much so that Jingming didn't even wear red. His eyes curved into crescents as he said, "Chuanhe, you look exceptionally beautiful today." I smiled back, "Your Highness, why the pretentious act?" His face darkened as he was about to lose his temper when a palace eunuch, looking ashen, whispered in his ear, "Your Highness, something terrible has happened. You must come to the palace at once." Jingming left in a hurry. My hands, folded over my abdomen, trembled slightly. Xieji had finally arrived, in my past life. This eunuch had come to inform the crown prince of the emperor's death. At that time, Xieji personally led an army of 300,000, conquering 2 cities in succession and pressing straight toward the imperial capital. His forces arriving at the city walls, the crown prince took the initiative to sue for peace, ceding 18 cities and half the national treasury. He told me, "Chuanhe, Xieji demanded you by name, to humiliate me, but he lied to me." Xieji had never asked him for a woman. This lifetime, however, was different. Jing Ming, overwhelmed with troubles, sent envoys to sue for peace, but the minister didn't even last the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Blood splattered on the spot. A minister from the state of Wei sneered coldly, "The victor becomes king, the loser a bandit. The Jing imperial family's days are numbered, and our ruler has no desire for harmony. Prince Jing, your head is our ruler's target. You'd better take care of yourself." The imperial capital was in utter chaos. This time, the state of Wei didn't bring 300,000 troops, they came with an unstoppable 1,000,000-strong army. The tide had turned irreversibly. the Eastern Palace was in a state of panic. The wet nurse packed up jewelry and valuables, preparing to flee with me. "Miss, I heard the Crown Prince is trapped in the palace. We can only escape on our own." I frowned slightly. This life was different from the last. The imperial city had fallen, and the state of Wei refused to negotiate for peace. I would never see Xieji again. The moonlight, cool as water, spilled over me, carrying a chill. I remained silent for a long time. The wet nurse looked terrified as she pleaded. "I know you and the Crown Prince are deeply in love, but with disaster looming," I suddenly laughed. "If Xieji never met Su Chuanhe again in this lifetime, then he would forever remain the sovereign who commands the wind and rain in the grand hall, with 3,000 beauties in his harem and children gathered around his knees. All of this is what he deserves. In this lifetime, this is already the best outcome." I picked up the bundle and said, "Nanny, let's run to the east side of the city. If we delay any longer, we won't be able to escape." I prepared to flee with my maidservants. The courtyard gate opened. The Crown Prince dragged Song Ruyu along, half of his face splattered with blood, looking utterly disheveled. Song Ruyu's gaze fell on my bundle, gnashing his teeth. "Your Highness, she's been planning to run away all along, and yet you still think of old affections and come back for her." Jingming grasped my hand. "Chuanhe, come with me." I shook him off. "I don't need you. I'll run on my own. He is the Crown Prince, with enemy soldiers vying to claim his head. Staying by his side is like standing next to the King of Hell." "Su Chuanhe, stop this nonsense." Jingming's eyes were bloodshot. "My kingdom has fallen. Be obedient." I scoffed. "Why should I obey? Your kingdom's fall has nothing to do with me. We are husband and wife," Jingming said, his eyes wide with shock. "Naturally, we share the same nest in life and the same grave in death. But I never thought of dying with you." Suddenly, the world spun around me as Jingming hoisted me onto his shoulder. In the distance, the sound of troops storming the palace grew louder. The secret passage was long and treacherous. Lying over Jingming's shoulder, I watched Song Ruyu stumble and fall several times behind us, looking utterly wretched. Suddenly, I flashed her a mocking smile. So this was the extent of their love, fragile as the thinning ice on a spring lake. Vanishing at the slightest touch, that very smile, it made Song Ruyu lose her composure. Pitifully tugging at Jingming's sleeve, she whimpered, "Your Highness, my stomach hurts. I can't run anymore." "Endure it." Jingming snapped impatiently. Song Ruyu was stunned. "Your Highness, your humble consort." Jingming slapped her across the face. "Keep your voice down, you jinx." Not far away, a glimmer of daylight appeared at the distant end of the secret passage, the exit. But before anyone could rejoice, soon, every face turned deathly pale, because outside were the enemy troops of Wei State who had been waiting for a long time, tens of thousands of elite soldiers. Like death himself biding his time, the man at the forefront sat high atop his horse, his sharp and handsome features as striking as a painting, yet devoid of any trace of mercy. His gaze was cruel as he spoke. "Crown Prince Jing, long time no see." Jingming's face turned ashen. He remained silent. The man's sharp gaze seemed to linger faintly on our tightly clasped hands. His half-smile made my chest tighten painfully, as if stung by a venomous snake. In the previous life, Xieji had personally led the campaign. The man before me must be Xieji. The man was utterly despicable. He glanced at the fleeing women and laughed. "You're the beloved treasures of Prince Jing. Whoever is willing to serve me, I'll spare." At these words, nearly all the women frantically knelt before him. Wiping his sword, he asked impatiently, "Any more?" My heart stirred slightly. Now, by the Crown Prince's side, only Song Ruyu and I remained. It wasn't that I didn't want to step forward, but Jingming had a death grip on my wrist. If I took one more step forward, Jingming would tear me to pieces first. What if I gambled on it? I was trying to break free from the hands restraining me. Xieji, however, fixed his gaze on Song Ruyu's face. Lifting her chin with the tip of his spear, he smiled. "Crown Princess, as rumored, your beauty rivals the moon and flowers. A pity he cannot protect you. Would you care to join me?" My movements stiffened slightly, disbelief washing over me, and the Jingming beside me was also filled with humiliation in his eyes. At this moment, I felt nothing but icy coldness throughout my body, unable to tell whether it was loss or disappointment. In this life, Xieji no longer remembers me, and the affection we once shared has vanished like a flame extinguished with death. The wind howled fiercely, and the military banners stood proud and majestic. Song Ruyu's face lit up with joy as he prepared to flatter Xieji. The man sat high on his horse, looking down with a cold laugh. "I heard Crown Prince Jing is about to become a father soon." Song Ruyu's expression froze. Clutching his belly, he was brutally pierced through the abdomen by Xieji's long sword. Blood spraying 3 feet high, gagging up mouthfuls of blood, Song Ruyu stared desperately at Jingming. "Your Highness, save me." Shock, resentment, and despair flickered through her eyes before she finally succumbed to blood loss. Withering like a faded crabapple blossom, her brilliance dimmed. It all happened too quickly. Jingming's eyes flashed with restrained anger. "What are you trying to do?" Xieji spoke slowly, as if delivering a lingering death, "for fun. I wanted to experience the feeling of slaughtering the flesh and blood of Crown Prince Jing with my own hands." The stench of blood filled the air, chilling me to the bone. Though we had spent so much time together, I had only ever seen Xieji at his gentlest, never imagined he could be this brutal. In the end, the man who had just killed still wasn't satisfied. His gaze, viper-like, settled on me as he arched a brow and asked, "What about you?" He seemed to be waiting for something. But I had no idea what humiliation he had in store for me. I gasped for breath. Suddenly, Jingming pulled me behind him, his tone already carrying the finality of farewell, as he said, "I will fight him to the death." Holding him off, "My 2,000 elite troops will protect you as you flee. If you survive, you must remain faithful to me for the rest of your life. If you fall into his hands, you must die for love of me." Jingming drew his long sword. Standing alone against tens of thousands of enemy troops, with the unmistakable air of one prepared to die, in that fleeting moment, my vision was filled with nothing but bewilderment. In our past life, he deceived me for a lifetime, even raising his sword to slay our children, yet in this life, he seems to have returned to being the young Jingming of our carefree childhood days. Reverting to his old protective self, suddenly, in a flash of clarity, I understood. I didn't flee. Instead, taking advantage of the chaos, I stabbed Jingming fiercely in the back from behind, delivering the most fatal blow, right there at his heart. Jingming let out a muffled thud, the ferocity in his eyes undiminished as he spat with hatred. Su Chuanhe. Why, the life of Su Chuanhe. From birth, I was given my name because of Jingming, born for him, destined to die for him, life after life. This fate has been inescapable. Now, the Crown Prince of Jing is in irreversible decline. Even with 2,000 death guards protecting me, there is no escape, no way to avoid death. He was right. I will share a grave with him in death. He was clever from childhood, having long foreseen our inevitable demise. But why must I die? I insist on carving a path to survival within this deadly predicament. So I twisted the long sword into his heart with clear-eyed laughter. "Your Highness. If you truly wish to protect me, this is the best way. Your Highness, Chuanhe will live on well. This is what you owed me from our past life." I killed Jingming. His face gradually turned ashen, filled with unwillingness. Perhaps he never imagined that Su Chuanhe, who had always been so obedient, would be the one to kill him. The battlefield was eerily silent. I knelt beside Jingming's corpse and said clearly to the inscrutable emperor, "This humble servant is willing to kill the ruler to prove my loyalty. I beg your majesty to spare my life." The wind howled against my face, sharp with pain. The man tugged at the reins, his expression unreadable. "Return to court. Can't tell if happy, can't tell if unhappy either." This grand turmoil came to an end with the death of the crown prince. In this world, there is no more Chen kingdom. The past life was like a dream. Xieji didn't take in any of these women from the fallen kingdom. On the day he led his troops back to the capital, I clutched my bundle as I gazed into the distance from the small hill, while my frightened nursemaid soothed me. "Don't be afraid, miss, those people have already left." Xieji was gone, a vast emptiness opened up inside me, but life must go on. Leading the womenfolk of the Chen family, our group prepared to flee southward for refuge. The identity of a former crown prince's female relative was undoubtedly a hidden danger. So we decided to change our names and start anew. Halfway down the road, the several thousand soldiers of Wei blocked our path with brutal force, capturing us one by one. "We've heard that Crown Prince Jing left a posthumous child. Round up this entire group and take them back." The resentful gazes of the womenfolk fell upon me. Only I know, the one carrying the posthumous child is not me. To catch up with the main army, these thousands of people marched day and night, and like livestock. We were delivered to the Wei military camp. The dust-covered leader herded the 30 of us before Xieji, boasting, "Your Majesty, I have captured them all and brought them back." He glanced indifferently at the crowd, troublesome. Suddenly, I was dragged out from the crowd. "Your Majesty, this woman is quite beautiful. Since you haven't had any women accompanying you on this journey," I thought. Xieji stared at me for a long time, his gaze icy. He took a sip of wine without any change in expression, The crown prince's concubine from a fallen kingdom is merely average-looking. I only felt humiliated. He had praised Song Ruyu earlier, yet now he bluntly called me plain-looking. Was he blinded by foolish infatuation in his past life? Or was it just to compete with Jing Ming? As I wallowed in misery, I suddenly realized the man had dismissed everyone, leaving only me behind. Xie, dressed in solemn black with his handsome features relaxed, casually spread his legs and asked, "Do you know how to serve a man?" I said coldly, "No, I feel terrible," he said, raising an eyebrow but not moving closer. "When I feel terrible, I want to kill someone." "How about that old woman who was leaning on you earlier?" My heart suddenly raced. My wet nurse was still among those women. Panicked, I knelt and crawled forward step by step, lowering my head submissively. "Where does your majesty feel unwell?" Xie lifted my face, satisfied, his gaze shamelessly fixed between his own spread legs. "This is uncomfortable here." I gritted my teeth. In my past life, I was at least blind, never realizing his face, brimming with desire, could be so bewitching. Yet his tone remained utterly serious, making him impossible to read. I hesitated for a moment. "Your Majesty, could you spare my wet nurse?" His expression instantly turned cold. "Are you negotiating with me?" The candlelight flickered. Having lived half my life, I only knew he was particularly domineering in bed, tolerating no refusal from others. After all, it wasn't the first time. I slowly knelt halfway and wrapped my arms around his waist, only to be grabbed by the man and placed on his lean, muscular thighs. He chuckled, so obedient. The next day, the man's face was stormy. Last night, the pain had been unbearable, and I couldn't resist slapping him across the face, hence this expression of his. He scowled, still not leaving. "Do you want me to kick you down?" I gathered my skirts in my arms. He shot me a glance. "Since you insist on preserving your chastity for the Crown Prince of Chen, then all the women imprisoned outside shall be executed." I was shocked. "I didn't mean that," he casually remarked. "Then why did you hit me?" I hesitated, suppressing an awkward expression. "If your majesty gives me another chance, I will surely perform better." I couldn't very well say that his bedroom skills were truly lacking. After a moment's thought, he said, "Then come again tonight." The night grew late. I was taken away by Xie's men, while the womenfolk watched me with a mix of fear and hope. "Chuanhe, our lives depend on you now," they said. But for several days in a row, I didn't catch a glimpse of Xie, let alone have the chance to plead for mercy. Eventually, I simply treated his bed as my own and lay down to sleep without a second thought. But today was different. I had just pulled up the covers when I noticed the man sitting in the corner, silently watching me, who knew for how long, and in his hand was none other than a vividly explicit spring palace painting. Terrified, I tumbled off the bed and knelt, saying, "Your Majesty, is my bed comfortable?" He gripped my chin. "If you weren't preserving your chastity for the Crown Prince of Chen, then was that slap because I wasn't good enough?" My embarrassment could no longer be concealed. Men being too clever isn't always a good thing. Sure enough, his expression darkened. Just as I thought I was doomed, an aged cough sounded outside the tent. "Your Majesty, this subject has matters to discuss." But in the dead silence, it was impossible not to hear their conversation. The old minister knelt beside him. "Your Majesty, you must not interact too much with the women of Chen Kingdom. Since ancient times, beautiful women have brought calamity." I recognized that voice. This was the powerful state preceptor of Wei Kingdom. In my past life, he had opposed me at every turn. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken 10 years for Wei Kingdom to fall. To everyone's surprise, Xie smiled and said, "State preceptor, let me tell you a secret in confidence." He said, "I'm not good at it," he said. "I need more practice," he said. "This matter is only between you and me, state preceptor." Then, the old thing walked away on shaky legs, carrying that enormous secret, while I bit the corner of the quilt, desperately holding back laughter, until the man stood by the bedside and said expressionlessly, "Su Chuanhe, you find this amusing." I was stunned. I had never told him my name was Su Chuanhe. At that moment, I trembled in shock. He seemed unaware as he commanded, "Rise and attend to me." The night stretched endlessly, so long that it blurred the lines between past and present, between this crude military camp and the frigid palace of Weigua. In the end, I fell into a deep slumber. Yet even in dreams there was no peace. I saw my past life, Xie lying dead before me with unclosed eyes. He must hate me. Upon waking, I couldn't distinguish dream from reality. With tears soaking the pillow, I clung to the man beside me. "Your Majesty, don't leave. I'll never betray you again in this lifetime." Xie indifferently pried me away, mocking, "After just one night, you've become this attached to me. Only then did I realize, in this lifetime, he truly doesn't recognize me anymore. He teased like playing with a caged bird. Indeed, I was rather impressive yesterday. It's only natural you'd fancy me. My expression turned sorrowful. There's no more siège of mine in this world, only this foul-mouthed man remains. A month has passed. I've been staying in Siège's military camp, an open secret that the ruler of Wei dotes on the widow of a fallen crown prince, striking while the iron was hot. I coaxed him into releasing the women of Chen. His expression suddenly turned icy, eyes flashing with overwhelming hatred. Never mention this matter again. I have an ominous premonition. Sure enough, he continued, in my dream, I was completely fooled by a woman from Chen. She betrayed me, leading to the fall of my kingdom and the ruin of my family. My hands trembled slightly beneath my long sleeves. Does your majesty feel nothing but hatred for her? Nothing but hatred. It turned out that half a year ago, Siège had been plagued by frequent nightmares, dreaming that his empress had betrayed him, leading to the fall of his kingdom and the death of his beloved twin children at the hands of the emperor of Chen. Yet, he could never clearly see the woman's face. To prevent the nightmare from becoming reality, he colluded with a neighboring country and led a million-strong army to swiftly conquer Chen. At last, the scenes from his dreams would never recur. He closed his eyes in anguish. I cannot commit such a grave mistake before the ancestral hall of the Wei clan. Even if my bones were ground to dust, I would never be able to lift my head again. My child shall not suffer unjustly for no reason. If I ever encounter that woman from Chen, she deserves nothing less than to be fried in boiling oil or roasted over flames. Death would be too merciful. His expression twisted in agony, his sharp, handsome features contorted with fury. He exhaled slowly. I will no longer endure such humiliation. My palms grew damp with sweat. But I am also a woman of Chen, I said. The woman in my dreams was extraordinarily beautiful and peerless. Siège slowly took my hand, racking his brains to find a word to describe me. Far removed from your rather plain appearance, he said I was ugly. He said it made him feel very secure. He might need to get his eyes checked. Furious yet relieved, I asked, was it because of my plain looks that you kept me to serve you that night? No, he reached for my waistband, toying with it slowly. When I first saw you, I just wanted to be close to you. My face burned crimson, but I actively responded to him, since he remembers nothing. Then in this lifetime of mutual affection, I shall treat him sincerely to make amends. Why dwell on the past life? In this lifetime, I returned to the state of Wei with the army. For the past 2 years, Siège had been preoccupied with state affairs, leaving the imperial harem empty, much to the minister's anxiety and fear, until news spread that I was about to be named an imperial consort. Memorials of impeachment fell like snowflakes, but Siège tossed them straight into the brazier, saying, "This matter is within my discretion." In the end, the man still elevated me to the position of consort. He pondered, "I will never take an empress in this lifetime, so you need not worry about suffering any grievances." The painful memories of his past life made the title of empress an untouchable scar to him. Time flew by. A year had passed. Siège's headaches grew increasingly frequent, waking him nightly with eyes heavy with troubled thoughts. I shook him awake. Nightmares again. His dark eyes flickered. I need some air. For the following month, he never again entered my palace chambers. Even when I went to see him personally, the eunuchs barred my way. Overnight, I fell from grace. Yet there was no new favorite in the palace. My heart suddenly sank as I recalled how he often dreamed of his past life. These fragmented dreams were enough to piece together memories from that previous existence. I fear he has remembered everything. I panicked, overwhelmed by a sense of disarray I'd never felt before, my only thought being to bare my soul to him. But my wet nurse stopped me. Having lived a full life, she was always more composed than I. With deep concern, she said, "Your Highness, the Emperor will kill you. Remember how cruelly the Crown Princess died. It shows His Majesty is not merciful. This servant only wishes for your Highness's safety. It was your late grandfather's dying wish." She knelt before me. "Your Highness, you must think of yourself now. I beg you to flee." In an instant, my mind cleared. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep a wink. In the end, I thought of my grandfather's dying instructions and my aging wet nurse. I simply couldn't be so selfish. I resolved to escape while he still held some tenderness for me. But the moment I stepped beyond the palace gates, countless guards surrounded me. The man striding toward me radiated fury, his icy gaze fixed upon my bundle. He laughed in extreme anger. Where does our empress think she's going? Only when the palace doors slowly closed behind us, and Siège threw me onto the bed, did I snap out of my numb thoughts. With a pale face, I whispered, I'm sorry, finally dropping the act. His eyes were filled with lifeless despair. Did you think us a fool? To be played between your palms for 2 lifetimes. My eyes burned with unshed tears as I finally lost control. I haven't, I've never harbored any disloyalty toward you in this lifetime. Why cry? Trying to play the victim again. He grew agitated, his voice trembling slightly. No matter how foolish I may be, I won't listen to another word from you. His emotions raged wildly, his gaze bordering on madness, unable to win against his relentless accusations. In the end, I could only tilt my head up and kiss him. Sure enough, he stopped moving, the anger in his dark eyes gradually fading, ultimately giving way to helpless desire. The night was long, he exhausted himself tormenting me. Before court, he reverted to his icy demeanor. Su Chuanhe, once my crown prince and princess are born, I will naturally have you killed. Does your majesty desire a prince? My nose tingled with emotion. Then this concubine shall bear one for you. Xieji's expression stiffened slightly as he flicked his sleeve. Our decision requires no commentary from you. The palace doors slowly closed. Xieji came daily without fail, his face cold and silent, channeling all his dissatisfaction and fury into the intensity of our physical union. A month later, I was pregnant, filled with joy and none of the aversion from my past life. My wet nurse laughed and said, "Does the young lady fancy His Majesty? Is that why you're so happy?" I froze. Fancy, that word felt so foreign it was suffocating. At first, I just didn't want to owe him anything and wanted to make it up to him. How could I have ended up liking him? Yet my heart is at peace, for liking Xieji isn't such a difficult thing. He's a truly good man. But another worry creeps in. If he hates me so much, will he hate my child too? This was a concern I never had in my past life. I recalled the 2 children from my previous life, both raised personally by Xieji, who shared an exceptionally close bond with their father. From the moment they were born, I paid them no attention, never once held them. By the age of 4, they still couldn't call me Mother Empress, only watching me timidly from afar. It seems I was not a good mother. Suddenly, I felt a pang of panic. But all this panic ceased with Xieji's arrival. His steps were somewhat hurried, yet his tone remained calm and unruffled. I don't come often, take good care of her. For some reason, I felt a sense of insecurity, watching him about to leave again. Do you dislike me, and thus dislike this child as well? He was about to coldly utter 2 words, but upon seeing the tears welling up in my eyes, his tone softened. No, I could never hate my own child. I breathed a sigh of relief. I suddenly had a whimsical thought. Then why don't you touch him? Xieji's eyes held a glimmer of anticipation, but his words came out stiff. This emperor has matters to attend to. Perhaps another time. Before he could finish speaking, I had already grabbed his hand and pressed it against my warm belly. My eyes twinkled with amusement. Then can you come and touch him every day? Amid the vibrant spring scenery, he seemed to almost merge with the view outside the window. After a dazed moment, he deliberately hid his rising smile and said, "All right." 8 months later, I became a mother. I had long stopped hoping for Xieji's forgiveness in my past life. I had deceived him. Then, in this life, I treated him with genuine sincerity, only hoping he could feel that I liked him too. When the crown prince was 8 years old, we gave him a younger sister. The days of our previous life already seemed like a distant past. So distant that I can no longer remember many things. Xieji never mentioned our past life again, though he would occasionally think of the prematurely departed Jingming and secretly compete with him. For instance, the year he abdicated the throne to become the retired emperor, we passed by the place where the states of Wei and Chen had once clashed in battle. The area had long since become desolate. He pulled me closer and said, "The tomb of the crown prince of Chen lies here. Chuanhe, if you wish to pay your respects, you may go." "I won't go," I replied, watching as the carriage wheels rolled past, stirring up dust that obscured the remnants of past horrors. "All I see now is you. A life without childhood sweethearts. These are truly my most peaceful and happiest days." The end.